Hi, hello, it's me. I've taken too many takes on this video, and I'm here to talk about my favorite things of 2020, and these are my albums of 2020. Um, so starting out, I'd like to say that this isn't like a top 15 list. This is more of like a 15 albums that I listened to from, like, that came out in 2020 that I really enjoyed. And even when we get to my honorable mentions, I enjoy all of these albums pretty much equally. They're all just really good in my book. Anyhow, starting out, we have Umebe no Sentimental by Mikazuki BIGWAVE. This came out pretty much the beginning of the year. First album I bought, and it continues Big Wave's. I guess you could say it continues Big Wave's narrative of Lonely Girl, which is like this lonely, this one lonely anime girl character, and kind of like their journey slash like run through love and emotions and feelings. And this one comes out to be like I don't need you anymore. I'm my own person, and I like who I am by myself. And Big Wave, Mikazuki Big Wave always has this way of making their music both cute and powerful at the same time. Like it makes you feel cute and powerful at the same time. And Sentimental really pushes that feeling the most. And it's probably one of my favorite that Big Wave has released ever, honestly. Up next is the Neon Skyline by Andy Shauf. This comes 4 years after The Party, which is Andy Shauf's last album. And I never really listened to The Party a lot, but Andy Shauf, especially in this album, is just a really good storyteller. The Neon Skyline is essentially Shauf kind of like singing out like musically telling a story of him and his friends out on the like on a night at the town, like just going out drinking and everything. And it's just a really like intricate but like well poetically spoken out story of just like friends lost love, like, and just like reconnecting essentially. Up next is Color Theory by Soccer Mommy. Soccer Mommy being one of my favorite artists that I found in like 2016. This comes after Clean, which would be Soccer Mommy's first like fully released album, I guess you could say, like through a label. And Color Theory kind of pushes Soccer Mommy's sound further. There's like a little more experimentation of like kind of just like sounds and filters and everything. But it keeps Soccer Mommy's like not distinct, but like genuine, heartfelt kind of like talk about depression and just like self-reflection. And Color Theory is just really good on all of that. Up next is Slow Dance by Aseul, Korean artist, Korean electronic artist at that. And Slow Dance is a really good, like, ethereal, but pop, like poppy, bumpy, ethereal electronic album. And Aseul like really like pushes that a lot. From tracks like Goodbye Summer, if I'm not mistaken, that's what it's called. 2 Weeks, and then the single track Joke. Aseul like refines the sound from Asobi, which was their EP from like a while ago. But like yeah, really pushes that like ethereal pop sound, I guess you could say. Next is Ehiorobo with Platinum Mudbomb. Ehiorobo being an artist slash vocalist that I discovered through a SoundCloud collaboration song with Flamingosis and Ehiorobo called Stowed Away. And Ehiorobo just has an incredibly infectious voice that, like, immediately after, I just absolutely needed to listen to more. And Ehiorobo's Platinum Mudbomb really pushes their, and Ehiorobo calls it, like, art hip-hop. So, like, this very, like, weird, unconventional kind of hip-hop. A lot like Atrocity's Exhibition by Danny Brown, but far more glamorous. Like, a really glamorous, like, weirdness, I guess you could say. And it just works really well. Then we have Ungodly Hour by Chloe X Halle. A duo, like a sister duo that I have never listened to until now. Honestly, I discovered this album by scrolling through Twitter, and I saw their live performance of Ungodly Hour, the song, on the VMAs, and instantly fell in love. Their singing, their music writing is just really good. It's, again, a lot like, similar to Mikazuki BIGWAVE. It makes you feel, like, cute, but more in, like a sexy kind of cute, and powerful at the same time. And it's not often that you get, like, or at least not often that I will find an album that, like, does both, but well. Next is Funk to the Future by Night Tempo. Night Tempo, a Korean electronic future funk artist. I've been listening to Night Tempo for years now, since high school, honestly. And they were my first future funk artist that I've ever listened to. And Funk to the Future kind of exemplifies why I've stuck around with Night Tempo. There's just really infectious beats, really groovy sounds that you just can't help but, like, move and dance to. It's just an infectious album, and Night Tempo knows how to make infectious music. Honestly, like, aesthetically, it's literally just like a space disco. And, like, one of the songs are called Space Disco, but, like, imagine a 60s disco in space. Up next is Blue Hour by Mothica. An album that I was kind of, like, really anticipating by Mothica. I've been following Mothica also for a really long time. I discovered Mothica through, like, a remix of a single, mind you. And immediately just, like, fell in love with the way she sings. And all the way from, like, Mythic to Heavy Heart and till now, Blue Hour really refines Mothica's sound that she's been, like, working for this whole entire time. And this album in particular is just a really, like, raw, hard-hitting album about, like, again, self-reflection, talking about addiction, and Mothica really makes it work. Lover Diamond comes up next by Ivy Hollivana, also an artist that I found a long time ago, but this one was through Galaxy Swim Team. Rest in peace, Galaxy Swim Team. But they were a label that just kind of put out a lot of, like, poppier, but, like, more indie kind of pop, I guess you could say. And Ivy Hollivana just has an incredible high, like, soprano voice. On Bandcamp, they say that they are a classically trained soprano, and they mix that, like, really soft but really, like, rich, high-pitched singing with some really thick, hard-hitting beats in Lover Diamond. And it's just a really good evolution from, like, Dragon Fruit Mafia till now to have, like, soft to harder hitting. Up next is Pop Songs 2020 by Bumper, which is a collaboration of Michelle Zauner from Japanese Breakfast and Ryan Galloway from Crying. Um, and this EP, this like 4-song EP, was not something I was expecting at all. Um, but I like when it was announced, I immediately knew I needed to listen to it. It's a great bumpy synth pop kind of album. Maybe not synth pop in like an 80s synth pop, but like just a very electronic synth poppy. And I've been saying this a lot, but this album has really infectious music. Like you really feel the vibes of each song coming in, especially with Zauner's vocals, which are just really light and like poppy, I guess you could say. Guy Akimoto's Canyons is an album that I also was not anticipating in the sense that like I didn't know it was coming. Guy Akimoto even says that like they didn't advertise this album at all, but coming hot off of last year's Make It Pop, Canyons just really pushes like a harder hitting, but like better flowing kind of electronic music that Make It Pop really kind of tried for, which succeeded, but Canyons does it better. And like listening to each song on this album, it's really hard not to like seriously just like bounce to it and like move to it. It's a really like digs deep straight into your soul. It's a great electronic album. Next is Type R 510 by Android 52, also an artist that I found last year with Ultra Groove project, and this year released 2 albums technically, which would be Future Groove project and Type R 510. Both Ultra Groove and Future Groove are more dubstep inspired, and Type R 510 is far more house electronic. And it's just, I guess you could say it feels classier. It's a lot like, you feel like you're on a runway. You feel like you're like bumping shoulders with like some fancy people. This album makes you feel just like it makes you feel beautiful, I guess you could say. But it's also got these like really rich, hard-hitting beats and progressions with like instruments and everything. A really good album. And Imaginarium by Snail's House is up next. This is kind of a continuation of Snail's House, kind of lower tempo and far more, I guess, contemplative, cute music. Snail's House is more famous for their like Ordinary Songs series. I think they're on Ordinary Songs 5, and those are far more like poppy, bumpy, up-tempo, almost like a childlike cuteness to it. While Imaginarium is more like slower and again contemplative kind of like cuteness to it. Almost like an adult, like reliving their childhood in a sense. And Imaginarium really pushes that sound that Snail's House was working on with like snow and so forth. Natural Habitat by Mark Redito, also an album I didn't honestly know was coming out. I had seen a single from it, which was Nowhere Left to Grow, but I was not expecting it to just come straight through with a full album. And this comes off hot from New Tropical from a couple years ago, also an incredible album. And Mark Redito finds a way to make this album feel really earthy, but like through electronic music, like electronic dance music, and that's really interesting. And especially because that's what they were going for, was to make a like earthy plant like sound, I guess you could say. Because Redito has said that this album was kind of like the interconnections of like plant life and people. Up next is, and this is the last one of like the official list. Up next and last is At the Moonbase by Slaughter Beach Dog, a band that one of my coworkers had told me about. It is Jake Ewald's band, and Jake Ewald from modern baseball fame, creating kind of almost like a folk rock band. Instead of like a punk rock from modern baseball. And I was really impressed by Safe and Also No Fear, which was last year's album from Slaughter Beach Dog. And At the Moonbase really like evolves that like softer, more folk inspired rock sound, and then adds a saxophone to it, which honestly, that saxophone is everything. It just makes my heart go and like explode. And so that's essentially like the 15 of my like top absolute favorite albums of 2020. And I'd like to say like some honorable mentions, which are also albums that I listened to a lot, mind you, also from 2020. But more like I wouldn't like listen to them. How would I put it? They're my favorites. They're honorable, but they're not gonna be like my favorite. Like I'm not going to hands down recommend it to everyone because they're far more situational in their music and their sound, and also for my own taste in music. We start out with Moe Storm from Tomatoism, a really like sweet sounding, I guess you could say, electronic EP. Transitions from Ginseng, a lo-fi hip-hop album to start out the year with. Internet by Cow, a kind of like harsh sounding, really hard-hitting electronic album by a Chinese-German collective. Ice Cream Junkie by Colat, a very bubbly, spritey, like, I guess you could even say creamy, hence ice cream, electronic pop album. Cyber Love by Neon Vectors, a really good future funk album. And then 4000 AD by Protodome, and by extension, Super Chip Funk by Protodome. Two really good chip tune albums by an artist that like kind of disappeared for a little bit and then reappeared saying that they got a doctorate, and I'm like, oh, okay, get that doctorate. But yeah, really good, really like fresh sounding chip tunes. Also, like coming back to this, really almost like jazz inspired chip tune as well. And up next is Cheese Mind with Say Goodbye Enterprise, a really good like soft rock Chinese album. Cutie Dance by BIGWAVE, another release that BIGWAVE made in 2020. They also Mika Zuki BIGWAVE also released a lo-fi hip-hop album as well. But Cutie Dance is the one I had to put on here because there's just not quite the same, like, makes you feel cute but powerful, but this one makes you feel cute and cool, I guess you could say. Very different feelings. And then Making a Door Less Open from Cart Seat Headrest, one of my favorite bands of all time, honestly. 2016 was 666 years ago by Absurdist, a very like raw, powerful electronic album. Punisher by Phoebe Bridgers, some really good sad people music. Because I mean, like, who doesn't want sad people music? Repurposed Fantasies by Machine Girl, a breakcore artist, but doing far more of like a almost like up-tempo vaporwave in this album, honestly. Odd Cure by Odyssey, hip-hop artist that I've been following for a really long time. Really good hip-hop album. Day Trip 64 by Timid Soul, artist of one of my absolute favorite albums from 2014, Bubble Funk. Hit Vibes, Alive 2020 by Skylar Spence, a kind of just one track, like, DJ, kind of like mix, I guess you could say. Lou by Saori, one of my favorite future funk artists. This one's far more like pop idol kind of cuteness to it. The Box by Oh Hae Jung, Korean artist that does far more low, like slower beat, low tempo, soft electronic music. And then finally, Return to Bird World by Leon Cheng, the continuation of the Bird World music, which is just like fake video game soundtrack. Or, I mean, essentially video game soundtrack for a non-existent video game, and it's just really good. And that, like, yeah, that's essentially my top albums from 2020.